in this process. In your packet, there's, in the beginning, there's a short sale process from beginning to end. I'm sure a lot of it you already know, but if you look on the second page, you know, it kind of gives a list of that short sale package that you'll have to gather with your seller, or, you know, give them this information, to have this information ready to present to their lender. They'll always ask for this financial package, and the letter of hardship is I know a big thing too.
We'll go over that a little bit more in detail, because they ask for a little bit more than this, and there's reasons why, and I'll explain that too. That'll help.
Sounds good. And then next page, you know, just goes right into, like, when it comes to time to writing an offer, the things that they'll ask for, and then kind of details the process at the bank. You know, it can be a very long process. But so that's kind of an overview. I'm sure a lot of it will be covered, you know, that we'll discuss. But I just wanted you to have something in writing so that you could refer back to it, maybe take notes on it as, you know, we go along. After that, talking about foreclosure, what you can do and what you can't do when you're selling. And basically all the way up to the foreclosure, you know, you could be trying to get an offer on that before it's sold. Is it, am I correct in that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so I'm not sure.
We should probably start with foreclosures first, because short sales, you'll have more questions with short sales. Sophia, thank you very much for the questions that you guys need answers for. That's always helpful for us, because we want to see exactly what you guys are looking for. On the foreclosures, your first question was, once the home is in the foreclosure process, can it still be sold? The answer is maybe. And the reason why it's maybe is because it depends on how far it is in the process. Now, every lender is different, how long they take to foreclose on a home. Sometimes it can be 6 months, sometimes it can be 3 years. It depends on how delinquent the client is. It depends on their hardship and if they've applied for a modification, or if they tried to do a short sale, or they just lost their job, they missed one payment, but they, whatever circumstances it may be, is however the bank takes action, which is usually after the full 90-day period of missing 3 full payments. But there's still a waiting period. They'll reach out to their seller and they'll say, all right, why haven't you made your payment? If you make a payment of this amount right now, we'll bring you back current and just tack on the rest of the 30 years or 20 years or whatever it may be. Depends on how long they've been delinquent. If the customer still doesn't pay, you know, 90 days goes by, 120 days, all of a sudden they're 5-6 months delinquent, they may start the foreclosure process. But in the county court system, that takes a lot longer, because they have to get attorneys involved. There's a lot of paperwork, filing process, court costs, mediation, deposition, whatever it may be. There's so much that's involved in it. That's why it could take 3-4 years, depending on the urbanization too.
These are probably other questions, but
Yeah.
when is a person knowing, like, okay, I haven't been making my payments, when do they know, like, hey, have the option now to go to short sale, or I'm gonna get foreclosed? They obviously know that if I'm not making a payment, eventually my house is gonna be taken away.
There are so many different facets to that question, and the reason why I say that is I, as a seller, all right, I haven't been making my payments, I got laid off, okay? I got laid off from my job. Chances are I don't have the money to make payments to everything else either. Now my car payment's delinquent. Now my credit cards are delinquent. If you hit to a point where the foreclosure process is started, and the bank reaches out to you and says, hey, you're delinquent, we're gonna start the proceedings.
That's what they'll say to you?
They
Okay.
will, they'll send you letters. They send you probably 3, 4, or 5 letters a month. I mean, they reach out to you because they wanna be paid.
Okay.
But if you contact them and say this is what's going on, chances are they're not gonna listen to you, they want their funds. So as far as a short sale, that's a fine line, because if I'm already delinquent on my credit cards, say I have a $9,000 credit card sitting out there, guess what? They're gonna file a lien against my property. That's gonna hinder your short sale. Any other liens to a property, a second mortgage, a third lien position, credit cards, delinquent homeowners association dues, short sale approval lenders, look at all of that and take that into consideration. Most will not pay a third lien position, fourth lien position, so then you have to work on those and get those removed too. So when you're in that foreclosure process, you kind of have to find out before you hit a foreclosure, your seller has to call and say, what can I do if I can sell my property now, get out from underneath it? There's also the deed in lieu of foreclosure, which doesn't benefit you guys
So the
because
seller
you're
has
just
to be
giving.
more proactive,
Mhm.
which unfortunately they're at a point where I think a lot of these people start getting depressed. There's a lot of emotional stuff.
Right,
They just go, I'm done, which we talked about, they're not done.
yes,
And they give up on everything, they're not paying their other bills, and now they're like, you're trying to help them and you can't. And it's a struggle because all they gotta do is find out what they have to do.
right, before it reaches that position. But see, they're reaching out to you after they've already
Hit
not
rock
made
bottom.
payments. They've already had an issue and then they're like, maybe I could just sell. Maybe I could just sell. Maybe I can call the bank and I can get a short sale approval. Sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you might be able to work with the lender, depending on the lender. The lenders are very, very difficult. Wells Fargo is one, which you know. They will not accept a short sale application without the customer going through a loan modification process, within itself is a nightmare. So if they get through that, then they can apply for the short sale process. They try to make you jump through hoops, otherwise you're gonna be foreclosed on if you can't make those payments. And Elliot, I'm sorry, you had a question?
As far as the liens, does that include utilities as well?
Typically, utilities aren't going to file liens against the property. What I'm talking about are liens that become, like credit cards that become delinquent, they will file a lien against the property. Those then become lien positions. Anything like that, when you go to submit a short sale approval, you have to make sure as many things as you know of is in there. So we do a title search first and get that all situated to see, okay, are there any delinquent association dues that are on the property? Or are there any credit cards that are extremely delinquent? Because most people will stop paying their credit cards, their car payments, all of that first because they want a place to live. So the final thing is not paying the house payment.
Well, okay, go ahead.
I just want to make a statement, because I want to make sure our agents, I wish all of them were here so they could hear all this, but, so they understand. Because we just had a deal that the sellers have plenty of money. However, buyer ended up looking online, finding out all this stuff, that there's liens on their property, whatever. Seller was still able to close. They're still able to move forward, we even have a lawyer involved. Their agent did not educate that buyer. They were more scared than anything, so they ran away from the deal. Don't be that agent that scares your buyer or seller.
Right.
Find out details and try to hold the deal together, because that deal could have closed with no problem. From all my understanding.
Right,
You know, from what the
You're
lawyer
right.
said, they had plenty of cash, seller's already moving.
Well, and here's,
You know,
here's
And it
the
takes time to find
difference.
all that information too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And be patient.
Yeah,
So-
the difference is too, is if that buyer's agent knew a little bit more about the process, or foreclosure process, maybe judgment liens and stuff, technically, it's not, by law, they can't see anything the seller has, like their payments, their settlement statement, that's all private, and the buyer shouldn't know that. The buyer can see, yes, liens on title and things that are
There
a
was
public
foreclosure
record.
filed, yeah.
Right, that's public record. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, can the seller pay for it or not? Well, the seller was in a contract. And if the seller's in a contract and they can't deliver, okay, that's why you have the earnest money. And the earnest money deposit is given back and move on, find a new house. But in this case, yeah, they probably can sell the property, no problem, and the customer walked away from it because they weren't educated properly. And you don't see your buyers and sellers being educated, but the first thing I can tell as listing agents, the first thing you want to do before you sign that listing agreement with your seller ask them questions. Are you current on your mortgage payment? Well, I missed a payment last month. Okay, is that the first payment you've missed? Well, there was a time there I missed like 3 or 4 months, but then I got back on track, so they're kind of just working with me. I'm paying penalties. Okay, are you in foreclosure? Have they sent you a letter, a pre-foreclosure letter? Have you gotten anything? Ask to see those documents, if they have them. I mean, these are your clients, these are your bread and butter. You want to help them, make sure you get as much information, be as transparent as possible. Tell them, be as transparent as possible with you. It's not that you're going to give that information to anybody else, but you will want to come back to the title company and say, hey, can you run and see if this is in foreclosure status? 9 times out of 10, we can't see a pre-foreclosure. We can't tell if a customer is delinquent unless we have a signed authorization, get a payoff on their mortgage. Some banks like Chase, you can call, get an automated payoff. You'll have it 24 hours, 48 hours, the most. But sometimes you'll call and it'll say, you're being transferred. It'll transfer me to a different department. Hi, this is the, pre-foreclosure stage or hardship or whatever. That right there tells me, okay, something's going on. Not necessarily that they're in foreclosure, but it gives us a little bit more insight. Yeah, they were delinquent on payments. There's going to be some fees and costs. No attorneys are involved yet, but there's still a little bit more, than a normal payoff. So that's where it's just best to ask your client before you start the listing agreement, find a buyer. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, they're getting ready to foreclose on my house and the sheriff sale's in 2 or 3 months unless I sell it. Then you're kind of stuck.
Now, do you provide us with a form that we can give them up front to say?
It's in our drive. We already have it.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah, I have the one for the short sale. We can make a more generic one, sell the authorization. There's an authorization form, that's how we get their payoffs, their judgment liens and all that. We can send a blank one,
Okay.
just for regular, transactions if you'd like.
Now, I want to ask, the second we submit, okay, let's say somebody gets a listing. The second we get a listing, do you check, can you check that for us? I mean, the reason I ask is because I have a deal going and the other title company did not check until almost probably a couple days before we were supposed to close. And it was really bad. Like, it
They
was a
didn't do
delay.
their title search?
No, and they were like, oh, we just found out there's a second mortgage on the property, so we're waiting for the payoff. And it was through the city, of Lorraine, which took forever. So it was probably like a redevelopment loan or something like that,
Okay.
community
Yeah.
development thing. But it was really a holdup. So,
Well, and sometimes you gotta kinda ask your sellers too, because we've had instances in the same boat. They had one mortgage payoff. We go to close, we do our title update just to make sure there's no new liens. Guess what? They took out a Huntington $30,000 home equity line of credit. And guess what?
That one you do.
We couldn't pay it because they took out money and we're like, what are you doing with this? Oh, well, we thought it was on the other property that we're buying and did a bridge loan. I'm like, do you understand what a bridge loan is? It puts it on both properties. It's a lien to both properties. We gotta pay this off before you can move on, so we can sell it. So it's always good to remind your sellers, don't make any big purchases. Don't buy a big boat with your home equity line of credit. Don't do anything if you wanna sell your home.
right.
Keep acting like you've just been paying along. Those are instances with that, and obviously I don't know that scenario. But usually when we do our search, the search has everything on there.
My thing was is that they knew up front for both of them, but they didn't request the payoff for the second one until like a week before we were supposed to close. So we got clear to close like on a Wednesday and they're still telling us, oh, well, we have to wait. We're still waiting for the payoff. And I'm like, you guys knew about both of them like in the beginning.
Especially when you know, like, when we order payoffs, we typically know who takes longer than the rest. It's like,
Right.
some are 7 days, some are 2 hours.
But
you
on a
know.
45-day close, you would think that they, as soon as they got that offer, they would have said, okay, let's start doing that now. And
Well, the only thing is, it depends on the time frame of closing. If you guys have a listing and you guys send us the contract and it's closing March 30th, I'm not ordering that payoff right now, because guess what? It costs your seller money every time I order it.
Okay.
So I will order it probably, if it's say it's closing March 15th, I may wait, depending on who it is, like if it's Chase, I'll wait until March 6th or 7th, if I can, because I know their March payments probably already come out.
Right.
But those are things that you guys don't see on our end, but that's probably why they did it that way, but, I mean,
It
I
could be
guess
they
I don't know
didn't
who it
get
was.
their, I mean, the only thing I can think of that would hold us up like that is if the seller didn't turn in their forms on time.
which
And
happens
that you
a
wouldn't
lot.
have the authorization, that some of those places won't even talk to you, they won't, they
Yeah.
won't send you anything unless you send in the authorization. So
Yeah, we
That would be
do-
the only reason I could think of for us.
Right.
And that's that initial paperwork that you send out.
Yeah,
Sounds-
and that's why we'll reach out to you guys, and obviously you'll see
Yeah.
that, we're like, we've been trying to reach your seller. We can't move forward, you guys wanna close in 2 weeks? We can't, because we have judgment liens, especially like if it's a state of Ohio judgment lien. That right now, they're backed up, sometimes they would get them to us in 3 to 5 days. They're so backed up now, we're 2 to 3 weeks out.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So if you wanna close your cash transaction in less than a month, get your seller to give me that authorization right away. And as soon as we see that on the title commitment, we're constantly reaching out to the sellers, we call them a couple times. We do like once or twice a week. We don't wanna harass them either, and we don't wanna hunt them down, because if they're not getting us the documentation, we can't do anything about it.
Right.
But that's where we reach out to you, we really need this in order to move the process along, because it's gonna delay it.
Okay.
And we look at the transaction date, and that's what we hold on to. And we always try to hold on to maybe even a week ahead of schedule. We wanna be ready for when, or if somebody wants to move it up. We just had one, they wanna close February 22nd, they came to us yesterday and they're like, do you have everything you need? Yeah, pretty much, we're just waiting to order the payoff, a little bit closer to closing. Yeah, we wanna close February 1st. Okay, I'll order the payoff, we're done, we're ready. So that's why communication is huge, and that's why we reach out to you. And I'm sorry for those, but we,
Don't
you
be
know,
sorry, it's
we do,
helpful.
we run into those issues where we put our hands up and we're like, we can't do anymore. We need the agents involved, and that's why we like to have that communication open with you guys, so you know.
See, and that was my problem with my deal. It was 5 days of negotiation to get them to accept the offer because they would not budge and we couldn't get them to use you guys. So we ended up stuck with Newman Title, and that was screwed my whole deal up, was the
geez.
title company. Yeah, he was like, I sent them this paper a while ago, they didn't order it until a couple days ago. So the title company had the paper the whole time, but didn't send it out for the payoff until like a week before we were supposed to close. So then they didn't have it, so our date got put back like by a day or two, but had they done it when they had it,
Right.
we would have been okay. So that's why I told Betty, I was
I
like,
kind of love these
"Oh."
stories, one more reason to use you.
Right,
One more reason to use you.
Yeah, and trust me, I tried.
And we really do try and strive to do our due diligence and make sure we're ready ahead of you guys.
Right.
And there are instances, rush transactions coming. I just got one, they're like, we wanna close in a week. And I'm like, listen, right now with cash transactions, it's almost impossible because we have to run the water and sewer and future assessments, make sure your seller is not delinquent to where come the new tax bill, your buyer's gonna be charged $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800, $900. We have to wait for those to come back before we can close. 9 times out of 10, we get them back in a good time frame. But some cities you're working with, they work from home,
They want a check
care.
sent in the mail.
They
So
want
it's a
checks
cash
up
deal,
front.
how much time are you looking for?
Right.
Like if we get it to cash deal? 'Cause it
We
seems
used
like
to
we've been getting a lot of them recently.
able to do 2.5 weeks. We're about 3 weeks out.
Really?
But if we get that title exam back and there's a state of Ohio judgment lien and I don't have that seller's initial form back, it pushes it out at least another week. Because once I get that, say I get it from the seller in 2 or 3 days, I still have to wait 2.5, 3 weeks to get that payoff from the state. Whether or not it's our party or not, we
I
have
think
to
you guys did a
verify.
deal with me in just a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
cash deal, I think we did it in 2.
Yeah, if we can close it sooner, if everyone wants it done sooner, we'll do our best as long as we have everything that we need,
And
But we don't wanna make promises that we can't keep.
Right.
Yeah, and if you don't know ahead of time what's
Right.
on there.
Yeah, and we do, it's kind of a challenge for us to get those done quickly, and we like to do that for you. But we also, sometimes when people rush, things can get missed. So we just gotta make sure that our checklist, everything's in. We have everything before we go and schedule everybody. And sometimes you guys will see, we'll set a closing, depending on the lender, we'll set a closing out and it looks like it's closing a week out. Well, why is it closing then and it's not closing now? Well, the lender is ready, but because of the CFPB and the TRID rule, they have to close at a certain time. So we put it out, get everybody scheduled, but we may be waiting on one last item that we'll know we'll have by that time, but we don't wanna hinder the closing and make it push out more, so we rush and we call constantly. Say it's a payoff or an updated payoff or whatever, we'll call every day. We need this now, we need this now, we need this now. So it doesn't, we're not the cause of pushing it back.
Right.
But always keep that in mind. Well, why can't this close sooner? If you're having a closing out in Erie County and they're signing in Erie County at 5 o'clock at night, our notary isn't gonna be able to get it back to us that night. They have to put it in the overnights. It's gonna take a day or two to get it out to Erie County. So if you see someone signing on a Wednesday and it's transferring on Friday, well, why isn't this transferring on Wednesday or Thursday? Well, we gotta get it out to the county. We gotta allow time for funding approval. Or some clients, some buyers now, due to the new wire law, they are required to send the wire in. Their banks, or if they have like a credit union, takes 2 or 3 days to get that wire to us. So there's more facets that are in it, there's more of a process, and we try to account for all of that information when we're scheduling the clients.
See, and I think as agents, it's good that we know that process, because you get buyers and sellers who, well, we wanna change the date.
Yeah.
Like, just out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a process, we have to check, why can't they just do it now? Because there's a process. You know,
Well,
there's more involved than
hard,
just
yeah.
changing the date.
exactly, and if they're ever concerned, I mean, have them reach out to us, we don't mind. We have a construction loan that's closing on Friday in Wakeman at 4 o'clock. Okay, our notary is gonna get the documents back to us Monday morning. It's supposed to transfer Monday morning. The lady has to bring in $1,400 to close. Normally, typically, we could take a cashier's check because it's under $10,000. But in this instance, she's signing at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. We're not gonna have the package back or the check back until Monday, the day of funding. Guess what? A cashier's check is not available. We can't use it. So she has to wire in the funds. But since we've already got it set up, we gave her an overnight label yesterday, send your check, because she doesn't want to pay a $50 wire fee. Send your check now, we can get it into the bank by Friday, therefore the funds are available on Monday. We try to find a way to make it work.
Right.
Obviously, if it was over $10,000 she was bringing in, we can't help you, you have to wire. That's,
Right.
you know, because we follow, obviously, the laws. But things like that, we're always trying to make sure it is convenient for your client, but sometimes we can't help it, especially in those instances where, why can't I close today? Why can't we transfer today? Because I can't help that. But we'll do whatever we can to try to make that work.
Are you asking them, obviously, you're probably asking them ahead of time then, like where their funds are coming from?
Usually we'll mention it to them. Other times we don't know and they don't tell us, but the bank after the fact will want to see like where the wire came from, and it has to be a specific account, and that's due to lender regulations and stuff. So we typically don't say that, but we let them know the second we have the final amount. Sometimes, you guys, we don't get the final amount from the lender until 3 o'clock the day before closing, and they're closing at 9 o'clock the next morning. I can't help that. We beg these
So then if
lenders.
it's one of those credit unions or something that takes 2 days to what, then
Then you're kind of.
there's nothing you can do anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Close there.
yeah.
And it would be helpful then if we as seller agents to make sure when something goes under contract, tell that seller, hey, you're gonna be getting something from the title company, be sure to return it immediately.
Yeah.
Don't sit on it.
We do always
So-
call the customer, and if we don't reach them, we leave them a message, but we immediately email it out. If we don't have an email, we reach out to you, do you by any chance have an email? If you don't, we mail it out to them. We follow up with phone calls 2 to 3 days later, did you get these? Are you sending them back? When are you sending them back? We need them now. So we try to be
Most people are
proactive
pretty
with
good
it.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask, when we send that first letter out to your paperwork and everything, are we sending emails? like the client's name or anything?
No, I always send it to title and.
So maybe we should do that with,
Yeah,
so
if
when we're
you
sending
have-
that original email with the paperwork,
Uh-huh.
we could have the seller's email right in there, so you're not even worried.
Oh, yeah, I put their information in
Is
there.
there,
Yeah, I
are
think we-
we doing email too?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good, good,
yeah.
good, good,
I
good.
believe you guys put whatever
Yeah, whatever we
have
can
for
help
them,
you
which
out
is
with.
great.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And if we don't have any contact information, we'll reach out to you and say, hey, by any chance do you have this, so we can give them a quick call.
Yeah.
Kind of
Okay.
introduce ourselves too, so they don't think we're, just a sales company or something.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Michigan.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to short sales. Does that pretty much help with foreclosures? Do you have any other questions about foreclosures?
I guess, back to the beginning, is
Mm-hmm.
when you're with your clients and they tell you they haven't really made a few mortgage payments, and all of a sudden they start spilling their beans about everything they don't owe, which they start somehow doing,
Mhm.
what is your next
What do you
thing?
do?
Do you say, this sounds like we might need to do a short sale? Like, where do we go with, I haven't been paying my mortgage for 2 months? What do we say to them as far as initiating stuff versus, are you gonna be paying your mortgage? Where are you at? If they're like, well, right now I'm having some troubles, do we recommend, like, why don't we try for a short sale and then send them the authorization, or
Not necessarily. I would.
that's where a little bit I'm
Yeah,
confused.
that's okay. I mean, it's yours and theirs, their
Discretion.
comfortability,
Yeah.
what they wanna do. What I would suggest is maybe talk with them and say, listen, you probably wanna contact your lender, see what your options are.
Okay,
And that lender is the one that gave them that money in hopes that that person is going to pay them back in full, plus interest, obviously. But sometimes they will be more sympathetic with clients, or they'll say, well, nope, the payoff, you can get a payoff and you'll be fine. If they're 2 months behind, chances are, yeah, we can get a payoff. Obviously, there's gonna be penalties and interest on there, but that's to be had. So
so a client
basically-
that tells you that their lender's giving them the runaround, that's probably not really the case. They're
no, they've probably gotten letters. They've
Okay.
probably had phone calls. Yeah, and they will call you and say, well, where's your payment? What's going on? When can we expect the payment? We need a payment by such and such date. This is the amount. Or if you pay this amount, we'll tack on the rest. And I mean, they will work with you in that sense because they don't want you to go into foreclosure because it's a lot of money for them. So you probably, even if you want, do a conference call with them and the lender. Call us. We'll do a conference call with all of you guys. Call the lender, get a payoff, see where they're at. If you think that they're really far behind and you think the foreclosure process has already started, not necessarily that it's filed and of public record. Gotta keep that in mind. You can be in a foreclosure status, but they haven't filed it with the county because they're trying to work on items with the seller.
That was my question about the authorization form, like, would it be okay for us to say, well, if you wanna know where you're at and we can have that research so we can get your listing sold right away, we can authorize the title company to go ahead and get that research for you and then have them sign that up front.
Yeah.
So when we get it listed, we send it to you with our package, when she sends it over and say, hey, they haven't paid a couple payments, they're not really sure if they need to do short sale or where they're at, so here's the authorization form for you guys to figure out the numbers for us.
We can actually,
But
yeah,
that's a
we
short
can.
sale authorization though, isn't it?
No, that,
No,
no,
we can-
a regular
We
authorization.
have a regular authorization.
Oh, there is one that doesn't say short
Yeah.
sale? Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the drive.
okay.
but yeah, we could order a payoff to see where it's at.
That's right.
If they direct us to an attorney's office, that probably means a little bit more is being done.
You're not gonna get any answer.
Yeah,
Oh, you might get
No,
more
but
answers.
that form
Actually-
authorizes on there on the bottom, it says for you guys to be able to reach out to any and all
Anyone.
parties
Mhm.
involved.
Yeah.
So they would be able to find out for you,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
or if they say, well, I have some state liens, send it over to us. If they have documentation, get documentation. Get their mortgage statement. Get anything from the state of Ohio where their judgment liens are delinquent. Get anything you can. Submit all that to us. It'll help us a little bit even before we do an examination of the property. Because if a customer is gonna be transparent and upfront, here, this is what I have, take it and run with it. Because then you know exactly what you're getting into. We can do a preliminary settlement statement based off those statements that'll say, they may not be able to sell. Or Yeah,
Maybe
can you
more.
bump up the sales price? Something.
So they say they haven't made payments, you suggest they reach out to their bank, they reach out to the bank, they get some information, then you maybe suggest they give you an authorization to have the title company also assist and see if there's any other things we need to be concerned with before we actually list the
Yeah.
property?
Because a lender is not going to, they're not going to come out and say, well, they're delinquent, we're starting the foreclosure process now. It's either they're in a delinquent stage, get a payoff, and then you just get the payoff and you guys can tell, okay, well, they owe 90 on it, but we're selling it for 95,
So,
not gonna happen.
so Betty, in this case, would you want us, if we don't know for sure, like if they're in foreclosure or short sale, whatever, and they're assisting us with that, would we still take the listing and then just put it as like temporarily off market until we know? So
If
we
it-
know what status to put it in, because I feel like if we list it and then there's all kinds of problems later and people are coming
I
out.
would put it, put it temporarily off market, that's what I did with the one I have.
Yeah, okay.
And these guys checked it. Now, understand, not all, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, not all sellers that are going into the foreclosure process, is it a short sale?
Right.
I have seen in the past where a house just had tax liens on it. I don't know what the seller was thinking, why they didn't just list it and sell it. I literally saw somebody that went into share sale just because tax liens and the house was completely paid off. It's like, what were they thinking? You know, I mean, it's like,
And you're
when I
right,
first got
there's,
into real estate,
there's a lot of foreclosures that the foreclosure process has been started, but what we typically do when we get an exam and the foreclosure process has been started, it means a case has been filed, we reach out to the lender to get a payoff, but we also reach out to the attorney handling it to get a payoff. Some attorneys will say, nope, you just need to get it through the lender, they'll have all of our attorney fees in there. Once we get that payoff, we send it back to the attorney and we're like, does this comply with what you have? Yeah, we told you, go through the lender to get the payoff. Okay, we're just making sure.
Right.
Some lenders will say, nope, you have to contact the attorney, they'll give you a payoff. They give us a payoff with attorney fees and such, so then you can see exactly what's owed.
Yeah.
But guess what? You can sell. As long as you have the money to
Yeah.
pay that, you can sell. There's nothing hindering that. People
And
think
if they-
foreclosure is such a, oh my gosh, the house is going into sheriff's sale right now. No, that's a process. It takes a while.
you know what, also, if, not really having to do with title, but, so if you're in that situation and it might be close, don't reduce our commission up front, guys.
Right.
Keep it at 7%, because guess what? Everybody's job's gonna be harder. If it comes down to it, then the bank or whoever it is, then we may have to later on. Don't do it up front. And explain that to them. We work with the bank on this, so that if we have to, in the end, we'll work with the bank. Get it out of the seller's hands. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with short sales. You can have it at a certain amount. Most won't pay over 6. Most won't pay over 6. But you can submit it at 7 and let them tell you, let the bank tell us. Come back, okay, it's 6% or 5%, whatever it is. Which brings me to the short sales. Once you start getting into submitting short sales, authorization is first. I can't do anything for you guys unless I have an authorization. They won't talk to me, they won't give me a short sale packet, they won't do anything. I need that authorization first. So send the authorization over. Everything must be completed on that sheet. If you're missing the social, can't do anything about it. If you're missing the loan number, can't do anything about it. I can't help you there. We've had people, not you guys, but we've had people submit a regular authorization to obtain a payoff, and I'm like, that doesn't give me any room to do anything. I want to help you guys. I create a sheet and I document each time I contact the lender, and it's usually every 2 to 3 days. Or if they tell me you have to wait a week, I'm sitting there tapping my foot, waiting to call them, because I don't like to wait on it.
Right.
Especially in short sales, you'll see the process can take a long time, 90 to 120 days, some even longer, if your seller's not working on things. If they're not working on them, if they're not getting you the items you need for the short sale, I have to sit and wait, and then it becomes a waiting game. So the longer your customer waits, the more time passes and the more issues could arise. You know, credit card lien gets filed because they stopped paying their credit cards. But always remember to get as much information upfront that you can from them. okay? When you're submitting a short sale offer, say we get the short sale package from the lender. The lender is going to allow us to actually do an application. The application, I will forward it to the agent and the seller if you want me to coordinate with both of you at the same time, which is probably the best. Keep everything transparent, let everybody know what's going on. The seller's application has to be, it's very detailed, and there's items in here that I'll go over with you. But most lenders want, you'll see it there on page 3. Most lenders want the listing agreement, the purchase offer, and obviously if you don't have a buyer yet, that's okay, but they want to see the listing agreement. So you have to use that listing agreement if we're starting that. A buyer's pre-approval letter, that's once you have a buyer, and then the seller's short sale package. Now, if you go on to page 2, the package can include all of these items below, a letter of authorization, that's number 1. The listing agreement, obviously, we'll have from you guys. A preliminary closing statement, that comes from me. That's where I kind of need any and all information. Maybe I should reach out to your seller. What are you delinquent on? Do you have any judgment liens out there? Well, I don't know. That's where we probably should do an exam to make sure what's on record, so I can kind of account for that. So I can toss all that stuff in the settlement statement, so we have a concrete commissions. Let me know your commissions up front, and that comes from you guys. Seller's hardship letter, like Emily said, that is super important. Be detailed, explain everything. There's also, it's not listed here, but it's one of the most important things. You have to give pretty much everything you pay for, down to toiletries. You have to do like an Excel spreadsheet or something. Anything, like your car, homeowner's insurance, car insurance, cell phone, cable, food every month. How much do you spend in food every month? As detailed as possible. And the nicer it looks, the easier it is to read, the easier they can get through that stuff. Obviously, they'll need 2 years of tax returns, your W-2s, payroll stubs, last 2 months of bank statements. Some lenders are different. They don't want all of that. They just want the hardship letter. They want bank statements, but they don't want your tax returns. It depends on the lender, and that's where that application is very important. And we can all go through it together with the seller to make sure we get everything all at once. I won't submit that application unless I have everything. Because you submit it, they're gonna kick it right back to me and say, nope, you don't have everything. And guess what? That just pushed us back another week, another 20 days, another month, because we didn't have everything we needed. So once I keep asking you, and I will hound your seller, I need this before I proceed, I need this before I proceed. I'm only doing it so that they know, once I have all of that together and we submit it to the lender, the quicker it's gonna go. They come back and say, okay, well, we got this, but we need the BPO done. Remember the one you and I did, where they kept calling you and she was another agent in the area?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she didn't tell you who she was with? That's a big thing. Like, they should have called us and told us that a BPO needs to be done, and then we could let you know, hey, somebody's gonna be calling you, or call the seller, somebody's gonna be calling you, they need to get in there and do an appraisal of the
Yeah.
property. So that's another thing. It's, yeah, you would ask me that.
Sorry.
It's in here.
But it's basically when they do that, when they go out to appraise the property.
A broker price.
Yeah,
agent,
assess the
would you-
property.
Oh, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it's doing. David's got it.
You're so smart.
A
Price.
broker price. And
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And there's obviously other items in here. If you look on page 4, it says a typical short sale process at the bank. The bank acknowledges the receipt of the file. That could take up to 10, 20, even a month for them to even acknowledge that they got it. But that's where I call every day. If I don't get an answer, I will call every day or every 2 days did you get this? Did you get this? It's not been uploaded, it's not been uploaded, okay, okay. And then I'll give it 3 days, then I'll call back, has it been uploaded? Yes, as of yesterday it was uploaded. Okay, what do you need? It's in review. Okay, what do you need? And that's what we do because we want to move it as quickly as possible. We know your buyer, when they signed up for it, they're like, okay, I could do 90 days. But when it turns into 120 days, your buyer is going to get frustrated. You guys are going to get frustrated, and your seller is really going to get frustrated. I thought this could be done. It takes a while. It really does. A short sale can take a while.
So the best way to get this done as fast as possible, you know, as far as like the buyer is making a very good offer, obviously, all these paperwork has to be in order, done, and then you guys will make sure that this doesn't go on for
Keeps
6
going.
months to a year. It
Right.
should- So you're the key to making sure this is, by
Yeah, as
annoying
long
the
as-
heck out of whoever you're calling
Right.
every day over and over and over.
And just so you
Yeah.
guys know, like 10 years ago, or maybe 9, when short sales first really, there was tons of them. We were doing it on our own office work. You could hardly find a title company that would touch it, or you'd have some out there, kind of like the B one, that would say, oh yeah, we have a specialist, but they'd never even pick up their phone or answer your call, so
Right.
it's crazy. So we're very, 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 very lucky to have Shauna and Erie View to take care of this
And we
stuff.
will always reach out to you once we talk to the lender, we send an email out, whether it's a very minute, hey, you guys, there's no update right now, but we contacted the lender, no update. We try to keep you informed, so it's not like you're gonna have to call us, what's going on, what's going on? Well, I told you yesterday, we called the lender, they said nothing's going on, I have to wait 3 days. And I don't want to irritate them, I do harass them, but I try not to irritate them either, because then they're gonna put mine to the bottom of the pile, and I don't want that, so.
Yeah.
Right. And so with that, they're gonna acknowledge it, a negotiator is assigned. We just had one, and I felt really bad for the agent because it was a friend of his. And she was widowed, she lost her husband, just couldn't pay for everything on her own. So she started the short sale process. They got, we were almost there. And they assigned the mortgage to another company. It took 6 months just to get to that point. Then, thankfully, it got sent over to another mortgage company, and the mortgage company got it done for us in 20 days because they honored everything from the other company, and we were so thankful because we thought, oh no, here
Another
we
6
go.
months.
Start it all over again.
Sounds
So,
good.
and it worked out thankfully, but and there are time and unforeseen occurrence that happens. You can't account for everything, but we try to do our best to keep going. And they didn't have the new lender didn't have the file for 30 days. You kept calling, we don't have this customer, we don't have this customer. And then all of a sudden you called, okay, well the loan number is this. And the customer got a notification, didn't tell anybody that it was assigned. She thought, oh, the title company's handling it. Remind your sellers, and we remind sellers. If you get anything, send it in, let us know. Any letters, anything, because it helps us in the process too. Because sometimes they overgo us. They're like, who's the title company? We want to deal with the seller. The seller will get the communication. If we don't know what's going on, we can't contact them and, ask for more information and stuff, so. Other than that, the BPO is handled. Sometimes they put another negotiator in. Basically, the negotiations is them calling me and saying, okay, you have 7% on here, no, we'll take 6%, change it. The short sale won't allow the seller to pay a title exam fee over $250, cut it. They won't allow seller paid closing costs for $3,000. So you can put it down to $1,000 or nothing at all. That's where I come back to you guys. Hey, all right, so get me a new commission letter. Got it. The buyer has to agree to either pay for some of the charges, if they won't allow like the closing settlement fee and stuff, and we work with you on that because we know short sales are tedious, so we do reduce fees anyhow. We eat our fees just like you guys do. So when they come back and say no seller credit for $3,000, you have to go back to the buyer's agent and say, hey, the short sale won't allow this, is your customer still moving forward with this? And let us know as soon as possible, because as soon as we can make all those changes, send it back in, then it gets moving. Yeah, so it's just a lot of communication. I mean, if you've ever had the best communication of your life, it would be in short sale process. Anything. And my stomach's growling, sorry.
Where's breakfast?
Where's the food? But other than that, they will just come back and ask you more questions, or the seller needs to submit this. And that's the process. But it is very, I wish I could give you guys an example of each lender, but they're all different. They're all different, and they all move, some move slow as snails, the other ones move slow as, molasses. So either way, it's just a process that's gonna take some time.
Do you see where you start the process, you have all the paperwork from the seller, like things are going okay, and they ended up foreclosing on it anyway?
They will
Can you
give
see
a
that?
notification. Usually when I call and ask for a status, they'll say, well, since it's so far in the foreclosure, it's up for sale next month. I'm like, oh man, how can we get this done right away? And we've done it before. I've had 2 or 3 instances where they were ready to go into sheriff's sale, and the sheriff was like, ready to sign the document, and we were able to sell the property, but we have to get approval at that point. Usually they're not that far along. If we know pretty much up front, once we start working with the bank, how far along it is in the process.
Now, are you allowed to contact, for the sheriff's sale and say, we have an offer on the home, can you delay it a week? We can probably close before then and then have it canceled. Because I see on the sheriff's, where they, for Lorraine County anyways,
Yeah,
like, then they'll change the date. And I think it's because people are, trying to figure out if they can keep it, if they
yeah,
can.
that's a good point. It doesn't go through the sheriff. The sheriff has no say. It's the attorneys.
Okay.
And that's who we work with, is the attorney or the lender itself. So the lender will work with us, and then they'll kind of give a heads up to the attorney. Hey, we have an offer, they're trying to do a short sale, we'll see if we can do it.
So that would be
Keep
the
moving
person
forward.
to defer the sheriff's sale if like
Mhm.
we're in process for a sale already.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that one, that was one where it was gonna go into sheriff's sale, the one that I was telling you about. So I called the lender and I said, listen, when is this up for sheriff's sale? He's like, well, they haven't made a date yet, but they've done the court proceedings. He goes, so it's gonna be pretty soon. I said, how much time can you give me? And he's like, well, and there was a lender involved for the buyer. That's another key, is because if the lender's not ready and we're ready on the short sale, but they'll only give us a payoff through 10 days or 15 days, whatever it would be, I always try to get it as far out as I can. I called him and I said, how much time do we have? He said, well, I can give you, how much time do you think you need? And I said, honestly, I think I need 10 days. I said, but can you give me 20 days? He's like, I can give you 25 days. Perfect. We were done, filed, transferred. It's best if you kind of are candid with them, and that's what I try to be. I'm like, this is realistically, or I'll tell them, realistically, the lender's not going to be ready for 30 days. Yeah, well, I don't know how that's going to work. Just keep me posted, and I will keep calling them and say, is this moving closer to a sheriff's sale or what have you? You know, they'll keep me informed on that. So, any other questions? Sorry, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No?
Good overview.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good guide for us.
So how much,
It'll
how much
help.
do you like short sales?
I hate them. I do. But I like, no, I do, I actually like working with them. It's just, it's tedious sometimes working with the lender when you've submitted everything to the lender and you're literally waiting on them. And you call for an update, we have no update, we have no update. I'm an impatient person, so I have a hard time with that, but that's why I'm there, because I want to make sure things are getting done in a time efficient manner, so.
Especially when you, oh, go ahead.